All right. In the previous step, you designed, sorry, two histograms on one random variable. So this is a worksheet of my speed random variable. Column A has all of my data. So if I scroll down, you can see it's all there, all the way down here to the last one. All right. And I created two histograms. Histogram one had 8 classes, each 19 wide. And histogram 2 had 16 classes, each 10 wide. And so created this frequency distribution table with class number, lower bound, upper bound, midpoint, and frequency columns. And let me show you what we're going to be doing next. So you effectively have created kind of like the skeleton, of your histogram or both histograms. Now we're going to flesh them in because you don't really know what they look like yet. So what we're going to end up doing is we're going to add a couple more columns to your frequency distribution table. They are going to be just kind of repeating two columns of data that you already have. But this is kind of showing you what Microsoft Excel is doing. And after Microsoft Excel makes these two columns, it'll automatically make a histogram off to the side. Now, the histogram that Excel is going to make by default um, is terrible. Okay, it's not good. We're going to customize it to make it look the way we need it to look. Um, so before we get started, though, in order to make this histogram, we have to make sure that the data analysis tool pack has been installed in Microsoft Excel. So if you go to the data menu, and you'll see in this data ribbon, we have get and transform data, queries and connections, sort and filter, data tools, forecast, outline, and there should be one on the end called analyze. Now, if you are missing this one in analyze, uh, then we need to add it as an add-in. And once again, this will only work if you're using the full desktop version of Microsoft Excel. If you are using the free web-based version of Microsoft Excel, this will not work, and there's no way around it. You have to be using the full desktop version. Now, the full desktop version, you install, from a full installer file, and it runs as an application. It doesn't run inside of a browser tab. Okay, so I am using the full desktop version of Microsoft Excel. Um, and I've already turned the add-in on, which is why I see this analyze option. So if you don't see it, this is how you add it. So go to the file menu and go down to options, which is the last one here at the bottom. And under options, you want to go to the second to the last option called add-ins. And then the view on the right side of this window will change. And at the very bottom, it says manage, and it should say Excel add-ins. If it doesn't, you can right-click this drop-down menu and choose Excel add-ins there, and then click go. Now in this add-ins window, and it says add-ins available, yours probably looks something like this, where these options are present, but they're not added, they're not installed. So in order to install or enable these in Microsoft Excel, you at least need to turn the top one on, which says Analysis Tool Pack. And at this point, you might as well turn the rest of them on. Okay, it's not going to hurt anything by doing that. So make sure that the top one is turned on, but you can turn the rest on and then click OK. And when you click OK, you should see this extra sub ribbon called Analyze with the items data analysis and solver added inside of it. If you don't see it, maybe click in some of these other menus and come back to the data menu, and you should see it there. Okay, so with the analysis tool pack enabled in Microsoft Excel, the next thing you want to do is you want to take this worksheet that had your frequency distribution tables in it and make a copy. So I would right click on the tab and then choose Move or Copy. And you're going to see a list of all your tabs here. Make sure you check Create a Copy. And then you can do something like Move to the End. If you select another worksheet, it'll just create the new one right in front of it. Okay, so you can click Move to End. And it'll name it with the same name, but it'll put like a number after it, 2 or 3 or 4, something like that. And then at this point, you can rename it. I would call it maybe histograms, and then take the number off. All right. That's what I did here. So you can see it's the same frequency distribution worksheet, but I added to it. Okay. Now, of course, yours is going to be blank. Yours is going to look something like this. Okay, where you've got nothing to the side. All right. But the reason why I'm showing you this is to show you where we're going. Okay, what we're aiming for. So for myself, I'm going to kind of perform this process, but on histogram 2. You're just going to want to repeat this process 3 more times for the other histograms and also your other random variable. Okay. So what we need to do is run the analysis tool pack. So what we'll do is, again, go to the data menu, go to data analysis, and it brings up the data analysis window. And this gives us a bunch of statistical functions that we can run on data. And one of those is the one called histogram. So make sure histogram is selected and click OK. Now, this will carry over the parameters from the last histogram, which is what it's done for me. So I'm going to delete this so it more closely matches probably what yours looks like, where yours is probably totally blank, and then it's got this radio button, new worksheet, poly, I guess, selected. So let's kind of look at how we use this histogram tool to create a histogram. So in this input portion, it says input range. So what it's asking for here is it wants us to put the range of cells that contains all of our random variable data. And what you'll see is that all of my data for my speed random variable is in column A. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the cell A1 by left clicking it. And you can see it printed A1 here. So I probably didn't say what I did there. So make sure that you click inside this input range field, click in A1, scroll down to the last row of data, hold down the shift key, and left click there. Okay. And that's going to select every row between the first and the last one that you just clicked. And so we have our input range, which for me goes from A1 and then a colon to A241. Now I'm going to go to this next field, which says bin range. Now the bin range it wants the list of your upper bound numbers. In addition to these upper bound numbers, we're also going to select the column heading that we've got for this frequency distribution table. I'm going to click on upper bound and scroll down to the last class here. And you can see it's put those cells in here. Now, if any time you screw this up, you can just select it and delete it, and then you can just try it again. Okay. All right. So we have, oops, I didn't completely fill that out. Let me go one more. Let's see here. Okay. Let me, somehow I clicked on the wrong thing. There we go. Okay. So I think I fixed it. All right. Now the next option you want to select is this labels option. Left click that. And then under output options, left click output range. So turn that radio button on and click here in this field. Now for an output range, it kind of wants a cell to start from to put on your worksheet kind of the data that it's adding. So what I did last time is I selected this cell that was beside the frequency column heading. I had selected that cell. So this time I'm going to select this cell, which is next to the frequency column heading here. So as soon as I click here, it adds that cell K25. For me, it's K25 here under output range. And then the last thing I want to select is chart output down here at the bottom. Okay, so input range has all of our data. Bin range has the upper bounds of our frequency distribution table. Output range is the cell that Excel is going to start adding information to. And chart output, you want to click that because that'll actually create the histogram. So when you click OK, you'll see it started from this cell and added everything down below. Okay. And it should have also added our histogram. So notice how different this default histogram looks from this one, which is something that I would publish and something that I would be embarrassed to show other people. Okay. So this looks really sharp and clear, easy to read. This one is not. All right. So we have to make a lot of changes to this one in order to make this one look better, to look, something more professional and something that looks like this. Now, I tried recording this video before and I noticed a problem that I didn't expect to occur. And the problem that I noticed, and for one, I cannot explain. I tried to do some studying on this. But for some reason, Microsoft Excel, when you use the frequency function, it calculates the frequency correctly in the first class, but then the frequency for the first class in your histogram is off, right? So notice that for me, it put 39 and 39, 93 and 93, 82 and 82, 20, 20, 2, 2, 1, 1, 1, and 1. All of those are correct, but this first one is wrong. And in this new histogram that I just made with you, it has a frequency of 1 and then a frequency of 0. But then it's 2, 2, 29, 29, 14, 14, 51, 51, 41, 41. All of these other frequencies are all correct, except the first one, and I don't understand why. Over here, it's really clear to see that, the number of datums between 0 and 19, the number of datums between 0 and 19 is 3. And when I use the frequency function, it gives me a frequency of 3, which is right. But here it gives me a frequency of 2. There's clearly 3 that are between 0 and 19. So I don't know what's going on there. It's weird. So what I would do in this case is just click on this one and just increase it by 1, and it'll change your histogram. So notice that when I change this to a 3, my histogram will change 2 or 3. Like that. So over here with mine, I'm going to change this from a frequency of 1 or a frequency of 0 to be a frequency of 1, like that. All right, so that corrects that problem. So in order to make this one start to look like that one, the first thing we need to do is take this border line off all around the outside of our graph. You don't want to have one, okay? So to do that, left click on the chart, not here in the middle, because now you're selecting the plot area. We want to select the chart area, which is all of this stuff here. And when you select the chart area, right click and choose Format Chart Area. And what that'll do is it'll open this toolbar here on the side that gives you access to all of the little details that you can change. Okay, now your options might all be collapsed like this. So make sure that this paint bucket icon is clicked, and then go to border and put no line. So when you put no line and we click off of this to deselect it, you'll notice now that border is gone. Okay, so good. Border is gone. Now, the other thing we want to get rid of is we want to get rid of the figure title. You don't need it because you're going to have a figure caption in your report. So we're going to take the figure title off and we're going to take the legend out. You don't need a legend because you're only graphing one thing. So you don't need a legend at all. So in order to do that easily, then you want to click on the chart area and you see this little plus sign, left click on that. And then we want to turn the chart title off and the legend off. Okay, notice those things went away. And the option we want to add is we want to add data labels. Now, by turning on data labels, you'll see it adds these numbers above the top of our histogram. Okay. That's the easiest way to turn those things off and to turn those things back on. If we didn't have access to this little plus, then what we could do is we could go, I think, to chart design, go to add chart element up here in the left-hand corner. And here we could have turned data labels on by putting it on the outside end. We could have gone to legend and selected none. And chart title selected none. So I think it's probably important to show that this add chart element doesn't always just let you add, it also lets you turn things off. And it gives a lot of different options that are kind of fun to play with. Okay. All right. So we got the legend and the chart title off. All right. Let's work on making the text a lot larger. And let's make the chart itself much larger because we want the chart to be big enough that if we were to cut this in half, it would still be legible. So with the chart area selected, you can see it says chart area here. Under chart options, select this icon, which looks like a box with arrows inside of it, and it looks like it has dimensioning labels on it. So if you left click that, change the width to 6 inches, and then change the height to 4. Now, you might have this, let me change this back to 2. You might have this option selected where it says lock aspect ratio. And so you might be having some trouble getting these to be 4 and 6. You'll notice that if I just change this one to 4, look what happens when I switch over to this one. It changes it to 12. That's because it's trying to keep a factor of 3. It's trying to keep this aspect ratio of a factor of 3 between these two dimensions because that's clicked on. But if I click this off, then I can change the dimension of one side and it won't change the dimension in the other direction. I can change these independently. So make sure that lock aspect ratio is turned off. And finally, click this radio button under properties that says don't move or size with cells. Turn that off or select that instead. What this will guarantee is that if you end up deleting rows or anything else like that, it won't affect the size and shape of this histogram. So click this, don't move or size with cells. Okay, so now our graph is just about as big as we want to make it. Let's worry about our text. So the first thing is let's rename this to be the name of our random variable. So I'm going to double click the horizontal axis label and select the text inside it. And mine's called speed, so I'm going to put that capital letters. And then in my units are going to be in parentheses like that. And then frequency, I'm going to double click that and then rename this FREQUENCY, all in caps. And in parentheses, I was going to put F. Yeah, I'm going to put F just because that just stands for frequency. Okay, so that looks a little nicer, but it's not nearly as big as we need it. So I'm going to left click on speed and I want to change the size of this to 18 font. So I'm going to come over here to the home menu and here under the font sub ribbon, I'm going to left click on the size and change that to 18. And for the vertical axis title, I'm going to left click this and choose 18. All right, so our axis titles should be 18 font. The axis labels will make it a little bit smaller. We'll make those 16 font. So I'm going to left click that, change it to 16 and bold. Going to make it bold. The other thing you should be checking is that Microsoft Excel sometimes makes the colors gray instead of black. So make sure that all of these fonts, all of these words and numbers in our graph, just double check and make sure that the colors are black, exactly black. All right, so let's go to this one. Let's change that one to be 16 point. Make sure it's black and bold. There we go. Now, these labels, if you left click on one, you can see it selects all the rest. Let's go ahead and change that to 16 point, and we'll make that italicized. Okay. All right, that looks good. All right. Now, the one thing that we do want is we do want to put a box around our data in the graph. Okay, not around the outside of the graph, but kind of around the chart area. So to do that, click somewhere here in the chart area, which is kind of where your graph is. Don't click on the actual class itself, somewhere in the space in between. And you'll see we've selected the chart area. And we're looking now at the chart area options. And what you want to do is you want to go to this border option. It's under the paint bucket icon and put put solid line. Make sure that it's black and make the width, bump that up to 2.5, like that. All right, there we go. You'll notice though, it looks like we created a problem where, the chart area border is kind of cutting off this number. Now, we don't want to take this number and just drag it somewhere else, okay? Because that's going to look terrible given that all the rest are sitting right on top of each class. Okay. Instead, what we're going to do is we're going to make the range of numbers here on the side larger, and that'll fix this problem. So left click again on this vertical axis and come over here to the Format Axis options and click on this icon, which kind of looks like histogram classes. Okay, click that. And under maximum, so for me, I have a maximum of 70. I'm going to change that to 80. So just a little bit bigger, and you can see it dropped this one down. So now it looks like it all fits pretty good. Um, and you can't really see it too well, but there's tick marks here at each mark. Um, that's what under units it says major. So here it's counting off by tens. If I were to change this to 20 and click out of it, you can see now it's counting by 20s on the side. So, you might need to change this so that it doesn't look too busy. Like if I change this to 5, you see how all of these numbers are way too close together? That's too hard to read. So instead of 5, I'm going to bump that up to 10, something like that. You don't need to worry about this minor axis option here. And let's see, if we click on tick marks, make sure the tick marks are on the outside. You don't want the tick marks to come into your chart area. You want them to be outside the chart area. Okay, let's make these tick marks show up much more boldly, much more strongly. So go to this paint bucket icon, which gives you the fill and line options for the axis. And under line, click solid line. Make sure that it is black and make the width 2.5, like that. And you can see now these little tick marks are bolder and they stick out more. They're easier to see, and they're at the same width as the width of the line that makes up the axis there. So that looks pretty good. And now we just need to do the same thing down here on the horizontal axis. So I'm going to click this. I don't need to do anything about changing the maximum. What I want to do though is I want to change these marks. So again, with the paint bucket icon selected, the fill and line options under line, I'm going to change that to black. And I'm going to change this to 2.5. Now, what you'll notice is that each of these tick marks aren't really above the number. And this number, which is at the center of the class, this looks like a midpoint. But notice that my midpoint isn't 10, right? My midpoint isn't 10. My midpoint is 5. So I need to do a couple of things. I need to change all these numbers so that they are midpoints, 5, 15, 25, and 5, 15, and 25, and so on. And I need to move these little marks over. So how do I move these little marks over? Well, over here, if you click on the axis, it says Format Axis. Make sure that that this icon with the 3 vertical bars is selected. Come down to tick marks, and under major type, make it none. And for the minor type, make it outside. And you'll notice that those tick marks have now moved over and they're at the center of each class directly above this number. Okay. All right. Now, the next thing that we need to do is change these numbers down here so that these are midpoints. So to do that, click on one of the vertical bars in your histogram, left click once, then right click on one of them and put select data. And what this select data source window shows is it's got kind of 2 little fields in it. This field on the right, it says horizontal axis labels. And see, it says 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. That's 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 here. So I want to change these numbers to be my midpoints over here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click this edit button, and then I'll select all of these midpoints like that, and then click OK. And you can see now it says 5, 15, 25, and it's already changed down here. So I'm going to click OK. All right. So here we've got all of our midpoints. And notice that my last class has a midpoint of 155, and that's here. But it's giving me an extra one, right? Why is it doing that? Well, if I click in my graph, let's see, if I click in my chart. Oh, that's funny. Oh, there we go. If you click on um, um, one of your one of your classes here, it's showing you to the left the data that this histogram is made from. And you'll notice that this blue highlighted area is a little too long. So what I want to do is I want to grab this control point and just raise it one like that. And when I raise it one, watch what happens to this extra zero here at the end, which isn't really a part of my histogram. So if I left click and hold and I drag this up and let go, you'll notice that it disappears now. Okay. So let's compare what we've got so far to what we're trying to get up above. So we pretty much have everything done. The only thing we need to do is to make sure that it actually looks like a histogram, because here it looks like a bar chart. A bar chart has gaps between each class or between each bar. A true histogram has no gap between the classes. Each class will share a boundary. Okay, so we need to remove the gap here. So what you want to do is select one of these class bars. Okay, so select one and then come over here to these three vertical bars, which are the series options. It should say Format Data Series. So click this icon here with the three vertical bars and change the gap width to 0. And then click out. Okay, and you'll see that now there's no gap between the bars. But we don't want it to be filled red, and we want to make the border to each bar a little easier to see. So right now, this three vertical bars button is selected. Select the paint bucket. This will allow us to change the fill and the lines of each bar. Go to border and expand it if it's not expanded, and choose solid line. Change it to black and make the width maybe a width of 2. Something like that. That should be enough. All right, we don't want this to be red in the middle. So come back over here to Format Data Series, and we want to change the fill. So left click on the fill and choose a pattern fill. And choose maybe this diagonal pattern, this really sparse or broad diagonal pattern. Okay, you can kind of decide which of these two you want, but you know, that looks pretty good. Now yours may not look black, so go to the foreground color down here below the options and just change the color to black. It might be on red or blue, and change the background color to be white. Okay. Once you're done making those changes, you can just left click somewhere out here and it'll deselect this graph, and you can just kind of take a step back and see how it looks. And that looks really, really classy, really sharp. It looks like the difference I made. So you can make those numbers bold. Let me unbold that one just for consistency. There we go. Now those look the same. One thing I do want to point out is you'll notice that these labels down here, these are arranged horizontally, whereas these ones are arranged vertically. If you want to change that, you can left click on it. Um, and if you click, I think this icon, which looks like a green square with two little arrows inside of it and dimensioning marks on the outside. If you left click that, under text direction, you can click, let's see here, I'm going to click rotate. Um, sorry, text direction. If I put horizontal, now it'll orient these numbers horizontally. But notice that it Microsoft Excel noticed that if it was to do it horizontally, these numbers would overlap each other and crowd each other out. So it removed some of them. So, I'll want to make sure to rotate these so that every single midpoint is printed here. Um, I could do that up here if I wanted to. I could change it from being horizontal to being rotated, and that would be fine too. But if you can get away with it, make it horizontal because it's easier to read horizontally. That's how we read books and read text. Okay. But here it's not possible. So this is the next best thing. All right. So the last thing you want to do is you want to save this chart as a JPEG or a PNG file onto your computer. Okay. So to do that, left click on the graph itself and then right click. Let's do this. And right click and choose Save as Picture. All right, now save it somewhere on your computer where you'll know where to find it. And you can save it as a PNG or a JPEG. Either one of those two would be fine. Give this a name that makes sense. So I named this one random variable speed histogram 2, because this is histogram 2, with 16 classes, each 10 wide, and I made it a JPEG. So I'm going to click Save, and I'm going to replace it because I did this once before already. And now I've got this graph saved as a JPEG that I can then import into my Microsoft Word document, which is my project report. All right, so that concludes, this tutorial on changing all the parameters of a histogram graph so it looks really sharp and professional. Just remember that for whatever reason, the analysis tool pack doesn't get the frequency right on the first class. So, you'll have to maybe bump that up by 1 at least. Just compare it to the frequency that you calculated before. That should be correct. So that's also what I had to do. And, to refresh your memory, to enable the analysis tool pack, again, it's found under the data menu. You should see this analyze sub-ribbon off to the side. If you don't see it, go to File, scroll down to Options, go to Add-ins, go to Add-ins. At the bottom where it says Manage, make sure Excel Add-ins is turned on and click Go. And then just check all of these, but the top one is the analysis tool pack. Click OK, and this will show up so that you can click data analysis, select histogram, and hit OK, and off you go. All right. Let me know if you have any questions.